Here I am pulling my bunched up sock out of my boot for like the 10th time that day. And my husband turns to me and goes, "What is wrong with your foot?" And I'm like, "My sock's all bunched up," which like is like one of my top 10 pet peeves. I hate having my socks bunched up. Anything uncomfortable in my feet and my shoes drives me nuts. And he's like, "How old are those socks?" And I'm like, blink, 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 blink. I have no idea. And there's that moment of like, oh man, I have just made sure my kids have an entire winter wardrobe. And here I don't have socks to wear. Great. Are you overwhelmed by motherhood and barely keeping your head above water? Are you confused and frustrated by how all the other moms make it look so easy? You can't figure out how to manage the chaos in your mind, your home, or your family. I get you, mama. Parenting with ADHD is hard. Here is your permission slip to let go of the Pinterest-worthy visions of organization and structure fit for everyone else. Let's do life like our brains do life, creatively, lovingly, and with all our might. When we embrace who we are and how our brains work, we can figure out how to live our lives successfully and, in turn, lead our families well. At the end of the day, we just want to be good moms. But, spoiler alert, you are already a great mom. ADHD does not mean you're doomed to be a hot mess, mama. You can rewrite your story from shame spiral to success story. And I'll be right here beside you to cheer you on. Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. Hey there, successful mama. It's your friend Patricia Sung. When it comes to spending money, this can be a really sore spot for us with ADHD. All kinds of stuff gets stirred up when we think about spending money, keeping track of money, checking the budget, impulse spending, overspending. It can come with a lot of baggage. And today I want you to know that there are different kinds of spending and that we don't have to apply all of the baggage that we carry around with us about money to every single purchase. There are different kinds of purchases. And when we can separate them out, then we don't have to have a lot of guilt and shame over every single one. Yes, some may still be there, but certain things that we're spending money on need to be spent. So let's talk through some of the things that are holding us back on making wise decisions and spending money in a way that makes sense for what our family needs. When we look at how we spend money, there are certain things that we need to be spending money on. Look, life costs money. Everything costs money, and we only have so much to deal with. And from like a strategy perspective, I've already talked on the podcast here about making wise money decisions. So you can go back way to the beginning. Don't judge me. I didn't know what I was doing back then. All the way back to episodes like 22, 23, 24, 31, and 32. Those are all about like making wise decisions with our money. Like, how do you make a budget when you have ADHD? How do you actually follow the budget? How do you put money in savings? How do you not overdraw your account? Like, those are all covered in there. And I've also talked about impulsive behaviors, like how it shows up in like impulsive spending in 157. So strategy-wise, we've talked about money quite a bit. Where I see it showing up right now, even in myself here, is like not buying new socks. Like, you deserve to have money spent on you, and we don't think so. Here I am, I bought my kids a whole wardrobe, making sure they had everything they needed for winter, they got pants that were long enough, and we went to New York City for a couple of days over Christmas break, and here I am hiking up my socks every like 2 minutes because I'm wearing old socks that don't have elastic that work in them anymore. And it's not until my husband points out like, how old are those socks? I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I don't know when I bought them. That means they've got to be probably at least 10 years old. Who knows? I mean, and granted, like I'm in Houston, we don't wear like boots and like big fuzzy socks around very often, but like the fact that I don't have socks that stay on my feet is a problem. I deserve socks that stay on my feet, as do you. So when we carry around this guilt about spending money on ourselves, like, well, it'd be better off if I spent that money on my kids, fill in the blank. It's like, yes, I'm not saying don't buy your kids stuff, but you deserve a portion of that money too. Like, you are a valuable, worthy member of this family who also should have money spent on them. Like, if you are still wearing a nursing bra and your kids are now in elementary school, like, hey, if you love that nursing bra and it's super comfy, go for it. But like, also, It is okay for you to buy a comfortable bra that fits you now for the stage of life that you are in now. You deserve to have basic necessities of clothing. They don't have to be the fanciest, schmanciest thing there is, but like you deserve to have your needs covered as well because you are part of the family. I know that you're probably thinking of like all those returns that you bought and then you returned again and you're feeling bad about that ADHD tax that comes in. I get it. I'm actually sitting here in my closet staring at this shirt from Costco that I said I was going to return and then I forgot the last like 3 times that I went. But also like one of the ways that I support myself is I buy things like from Costco where it has a generous return policy. And I know that if I don't return it right away, it's okay. I can return it in a month from now and I'll still get my money back. So like we can find ways to support ourselves in making better decisions because we're not going to just magically be good at money. We're not just going to magically like not be buying things impulsively, but we can do things to make better decisions. And just because you made a bad decision one time or many times doesn't mean that you don't deserve to have that money still spent on you for like basic things or even like things that you think feel like a luxury. Because I would challenge that perhaps taking care of yourself is not actually a luxury like we like to categorize it. It's a whole lot easier to say, oh, well, that's like a luxury item and like we have other things that are more important to spend it on. And then we can rationalize away like that I don't need new socks. But like, is that actually a luxury to have socks that stay on your feet? There are times in our lives where we have to stick to a really tight budget. And no, there is no money for a new bra in this budget. But there's a lot of times also that we choose to spend the money on everybody else and we give ourselves 0% of the pie. And that's where I want to start changing the way you think about it, to know that you do deserve to have a part of the budget spent on you. You are part of the family, therefore you are part of the budget. If we're constantly putting ourselves at the bottom of the list, then we're not taken care of. Then we're setting the example for our kids that it's okay for mom to be at the bottom of the list. And that is not okay. So as we're talking about money today, I want to be sensitive that sometimes we don't have room in the budget and we're keeping it tight because that's what we got to do. But when you are looking at that overall picture, I want to be sure that you're part of the picture. Even if it's a small slice, you're still part of the picture. Okay, so why do we need to put ourselves on the priority list and make sure that a piece of the budget is going towards you? First, I think a lot of times we think that self-care is a luxury item. And like, actually, self-care is like a basic necessity. Taking care of yourself. Like, I'm not talking about like, oh, you know, going to get a pedicure instead of buying groceries. Like, I'm talking about the times where it's like taking care of yourself is a bare minimum of being like a functioning human. When you're taking care of yourself, that means you have increased capacity to deal with everything that's going on. That means that like by going to the doctor, you're taking care of yourself so that you are healthy enough to be able to take care of your kids and do the things that you want to do. When you're taking care of yourself, you have more energy. When you're taking care of yourself, that reduces the stress load on you. When you take care of yourself, that means that you are better equipped to take care of everybody else, not just today, but like in the long run overall. Like this is something that helps prevent burnout. When you're always putting everyone else first, that's how we get burnout, when you're exhausted, when you're overwhelmed. Like a lot of self-care things fall in like the basic needs, like putting gas in the car. The car doesn't go if you don't put the gas in. The mom doesn't go if she's not getting enough sleep. And basic food, drinking your water, taking some time away for your brain to unmoosh. Those are the ways that you prevent burnout so that you can be a great mom. What can you do to treat your ADHD? Medicines are a great way to help so many people, but they don't work for everyone, and sometimes you're in a place or a season that they're just not going to work out right now. Maybe they're not an option. I have put together a list of a ton of ideas, most of which I either have done or I'm currently doing myself to take care of my ADHD. This is like the full brainstorm list of what you can do to take care of yourself beyond medication. Head on over to patriciasung.com/beyond-meds and grab yourself that checklist. That's patriciasung.com/BEYOND-MEDS for a free checklist of all the ways that you can take care of yourself beyond medication. One of the ways that I think self-care really gets overlooked is that when we have ADHD, we really need a lot of white space to let our minds wander and be creative. And this can look like a lot of things. Like sometimes it looks like creative space, like, art or dance or craft projects. Sometimes there's like a physical creativity going on. And sometimes it's just giving your brain space to wander so that your thoughts don't run amok later. Like whenever people are having trouble sleeping, one of my first questions is like, when during the day did your brain have time to run through all those thoughts that are going on when you're in bed with your eyes closed? Like if the only time you slow down is when you put your head on the pillow, your brain's like, hello, thanks for letting me do stuff. Okay, let me tell you all the things that I didn't tell you earlier today. No brain, this is the time we're trying to go to sleep. So if we aren't giving ourselves the space during the day to be able to let our mind wander and think about all those things that pop up, that's what's keeping you up at night half the time. So that self-care time, that time where you step away from all your responsibilities, maybe not all of them, but some of them, that is what allows your brain to unravel all of its busyness that comes with having ADHD. You need that space to let your mind wander, recharge. Those times where thoughts are marinating around your head, that's when you can unfold and problem solve. That's why you get all your good ideas when you're driving or in the shower or when you're on the potty. That's when your brain has time to come up with all the cool stuff because you're finally not doing 600 things. Even if that time is used for your kids, you're trying to come up with a solution of man, I don't know what to do about this kid's problem about, their friend drama. If you don't give your brain space to problem solve and turn it around, that's when your brain can come up with all the good ideas and figure out how are you going to deal with this problem. But also that decompression time gives you the space to breathe and take some of this responsibility off your shoulders and allow you to rest so that you have the capacity to do all of that. And the other part where I think self-care gets a bad rap when we're spending money on ourselves is that this is one of the ways that we actually strengthen our relationships. When you put money towards you instead of something else with the family, that doesn't mean you're being neglectful of your family. Yes, there's only so much of the pie to go around, but that doesn't mean that by using part of it, everyone else is derelict. They will be okay if they get 90% of their wishes filled and 10% of that goes towards you. They'll be all right. But also spending money on yourself keeps you from becoming resentful and feeling like you're being neglected and everybody else is getting their needs met, or in some of their wants probably too. That can start to eat at us. And we start to feel resentful. Why aren't I important? How come I don't get to be cared for? And that's a really slippery slope that we can fall down when we're not taking care of ourselves. But also we have to be the ones to say that. Yes, of course, we wish somebody else in the family would point out that we need a break or that we need this or that. But ultimately, as the mom, we're driving the bus on a lot of financial decisions. So if we're not putting ourselves on the list, it's not going to happen. And when you are happy and fulfilled and being taken care of and getting refreshment, then you're going to have a better attitude the rest of the time because your needs are being met too. So it creates a better dynamic within your family because everyone's getting needs met. Everyone feels important. Everyone shows up as, part of the priority list at some point in the day. And when we're in a better mood, then we're able to have stronger emotional connections and have good conversations and things can be lighthearted. None of that happens when we're feeling resentful. So when you are thinking about this money would be better spent here, but better by what definition? Because taking care of yourself is not selfish. You are a human too. You need to be on the list of priorities just like everybody else in the family is. And that's an investment. When you take care of yourself, you get the benefit, but you also get the benefit within your family. So it comes back to you twofold or tenfold because your family gets a happier mom, a more content mom, a mom who has basic needs met. And that's a big part of how our family dynamic comes together is when everybody's needs are met. When there's somebody who is absorbing all of the resources of the group, that imbalance sometimes is necessary, but when it's not necessary, it creates a lot of problems. So we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves too. Because I asked about this in the Facebook group a couple months ago, spending money. And it was a pretty wide split of some people do whatever they want. Some people talk to their partner about every decision. Some only talk to their partner about big decisions. It was a pretty widespread, but there was a common theme of feeling uncomfortable in talking to your partner about spending money on yourself. And I think this is a lot of times where it's a multi-layered thing. But like when we've made a lot of impulse purchases or not followed the budget or made decisions that we regretted about our money, a lot of times it will come back into play of like, well, now I don't feel like I deserve to ask for part of the money to go towards me because I wasted A, B, C, and D, and now I don't feel like I deserve what's there. When we carry this guilt and shame into these conversations, not only is it not good for us, because we're starting that conversation from like a stressed point, but when we carry that in and our partner doesn't know that like that's part of the brewings underneath the surface, they don't know how to help us. So when we're having these conversations about spending money on ourselves with our partner, there's a few things I think help make it a little bit easier. One is starting the conversation like at the right time, the right place, like not when everybody's grumpy, not when people had a bad day, not when, there's a whole bunch of distractions and kids running around. Like you want to have a talk about something sensitive like money when everybody's in a fairly good mood, relaxed, not worried about other things. And yes, it can be very hard to find a time like that when you have kids around. Like we can also go to our partner and say like, hey, I have some questions about money stuff. Like when's a good time for us to do that? And mark it out on the calendar. Like, hey, I think Tuesday after the kids go to bed would be a good one. And it's okay to be like, you know what? Today was a really crappy day. We probably need to talk about this another day because I'm in a rough mood. And when you have this open communication with your partner and letting them know how you're feeling, they can then help you and you can help them, where you can like start off the conversation just on a better foot that way. But being honest in the way that you feel matters a lot. There are so many things that I did not realize I brought into conversations before my husband and I started going to marriage counseling, and realizing like just how much baggage I carried into so many of our conversations, and like, sidestepping and like walking on eggshells on like what I thought I should or shouldn't say. And a lot of them were actually like came from me. It wasn't anything that he did or said that made me approach the conversation that way. A lot of it was like the trauma that I grew up with, or my worries, or my intrusive thoughts that were telling me like I had to like do all these things and jump through all these hoops in order to deserve having money spent on me. I mean, and like a lot of preconceived notions about a lot of topics, but today I'm talking about money, so I'm gonna stay there. When we can be honest and say like, here's how I feel about this. Here's what I'm concerned about. This is how I'm feeling about it. And sticking like to those I statements and like focusing on what I need, how I'm feeling, and avoiding the like, you did this, you always do that. Like, oh, no, back up the truck. Sticking with those I statements. It helps him know what really matters to me. Because when we can share with our partner openly about like where we're coming from, they can also help us. They can like help them see our side of things better, but it also helps them to like be able to problem solve together too. Because sometimes like if I'm expressing a need for some more space, I feel like the kids are always on me. I might have already cut my head with like, here's the solution I really want. But when you and your partner are working together, like you could probably come up with like 6 different options of how you could make that happen. So when you're both working on like the same team, you can get to the solution that fits the needs easier and faster and like better, and you'll come up with new ideas. But if the other person doesn't understand why you're feeling that way or what it is that you really want, then it's a lot harder for them to help you come up with a solution that's going to fit what your family or your budget needs. Another thing that helps me a lot is reminding myself from the get-go that like my partner loves me very much and he wants what's best for me. And when I come into the conversation knowing that like we're both on the same team, we're both trying to get to the same goal of everyone being happy and taken care of, then it helps me have the right mindset, and it helps him have that mindset too of like, we're on the same team. We're both trying to get to the solution that's going to make both people happy, all the family happy. Like we're working together. Like we want to look at like how this benefits the whole family. Me taking care of myself is not selfish, and I'm not scooping up the resources and preventing anyone else having a good life. No. When everybody in the family is taken care of, everybody does better. It's like that saying, rising tide lifts all ships. Like when everyone in the family has their needs met, everyone is doing better overall. And like, I'm going to say it one more time. You are a part of the family. You are a member of the family, and some of the resources should also go towards you. Have you got a child that is too much? Too sensitive, too anxious, too boisterous, too loud, too anxious, too smart for their own good, too much. I am hosting a parenting workshop for parents of kids that are too much, and it's Donate What You Can because it's a fundraiser for my kids' school. They lost funding for the GT program for next year, and so a bunch of parents have banded together, and we are raising money to be able to keep that program for our kids. So donate what you can for the Your Gifted Child series. It's a parenting workshop where we are going to cover 3 different topics. There, you can show up live or you can watch the replay. The first workshop is Behind the Brilliance, Understanding and Nurturing Gifted Minds. The second workshop is Gifted and Grounded, Parenting Strategies for Raising Exceptional Children. And the third workshop is Calm in the Chaos, Emotional Resilience for Gifted Families. So if you have a child that is too much, please come join me and donate to a very good cause. You can find all the information at patriciasung.com/GT. Those are both lowercase letters, and donate for a great cause, and you get those 3 workshops. If you purchase before the workshops happen, you can attend live, or afterwards, you can watch the replay. So thank you so much for supporting my kids' school, and let's get you some parenting strategies to help you raise your out-of-the-box kid. Again, that's patriciasung.com/GT, both lowercase letters. The next helpful tip is when you're talking about money with your partner is looking at like specific examples. When you go in and say, like, we need to send money on X, I think it'll be about this much. It's a lot easier for both people to like understand in the conversation what you're going for than to be like, I need time for me. And it's like, well, okay, like what does that mean? How long is that? How much does it cost? How much burden is the other partner taking to make that happen? Like when we give specific examples. So when we give specific examples, it helps them to know what the ask is. But also know, like, you probably don't need to go in with like a PowerPoint presentation and like 5 pages of notes, but some specifics are good. Like one of the things that actually drives my husband bonkers is when I come up with an idea and I've like researched it so far that I know exactly what I want to do. And then he's like, how is this not a team decision? Like, why didn't you tell me earlier so we could have worked on this together? And so feeling out your relationship and knowing like what parts of this does your partner want to be involved in and what parts are they like, I do not want to be involved in that. You handle it. Like, but when things affect both of you, like some of those things need to be addressed by the group, not just one person. So you don't have to have a 5-page PowerPoint presentation and know like every last detail, because also like it doesn't have to be like one conversation. It can be hey, I was thinking about updating my wardrobe with like new basics because I'm really struggling with like these socks that keep bunching up. Let's talk about what's in the budget for me to replace like, socks, underwear, and bras for the next couple of months. And it could be like, okay, well, what if we, maybe you do socks this month, underwear next month, and bras the month after that. Or it could be like, well, why don't you grab a couple things that you like, see what works, and then we'll look at our next month budget to be like, okay, well, now that we know the underwear you like costs this much and the socks you like cost this much, and be like, where do we have room in the budget coming up in the next few months to fit that in? Another helpful part when you're having money discussions is acknowledging and addressing any concerns that are on both sides. So obviously, like, money can be a really worrisome subject for a lot of us. And so if we think about like, okay, well, if we're going to spend it on this, here's some ideas of how we could cut back here. And knowing like, we're not just going to ignore the problems and just be like, yes, spend more money, but that we can look at the different ways that this is going to affect the rest of the family and like, what can we do about that? And then we want to look at also, what are the priorities? Like having a good conversation about what funds are going towards like needs versus saving versus like personal enjoyment, self-care kind of stuff. Like looking at all of that in the big picture and having these ongoing conversations of what matters to your family and what are you working towards and what are you saving towards. That helps everyone stay on track too, because when we have ADHD, if we don't understand the motivation for something, we're not doing it. So like, we're not sticking to a budget just to stick to a budget. If you're saving for a house, that's a different motivation. But like, also that can be really vague and not actually that motivating because it doesn't feel tangible. Sometimes we have to drill it down to be like, well, our priority is like, we really want a sturdy home that's like steady, that feels safe and like something consistent. Like we want to like raise our kids here for the next 10 years, that like until they're out of the house. Like that may be a more tangible prioritization is saying like, we want this sturdy stability, like kind of thing in our lives more than just like, we want to buy a house. It's like, why do you want to buy a house? Like, what about it is motivating to you? Is it that you love to paint and you can't wait to like paint your house all different colors in each room? Like, is it that you want to have room for guests to come visit anytime you want? Is it that you want to have backyard dinner parties in the summer? Like, what about it is a priority to you? And that helps us stay on track for like what matters. Because then we can say like, well, this thing comes up of like, ooh, Target dollar spot. Like, well, is this thing more important than me having all my friends over for summer dinner parties? No, okay, I can pass on that. But if it's just like, well, we're saving for a house, it's like, well, that just feels so like far away and like, I don't know, big. But it's a lot easier to look at this doodad at Target and be like, do I want this more than summer dinner parties in my new backyard? Okay, decision. A lot easier then. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we both share opinions. It's not just about what we want to talk about, but like getting your partner's thoughts too and understanding like, what are they worried about? Like, is there anything that they need? And I am a staunch supporter of it not being like tally marks and like, well, I did this for you, so you need to do this for me. Or like, I got a weekend away, so now, fine, I'll give you a weekend away. Like in marriage, when we start counting things, it never goes well. And like, granted, I'm saying all this marriage advice, like with the understanding that like, this is true if you have a partner who truly cares about you and is not like an awful person who does not want the best for you. Like that's a whole different conversation. That's not the conversation we're having today. When you're in a partnership where both people really do love each other, are trying to work for the best, want to do what's good for the whole family, for their partner, like when you're both on the same team, you don't have to keep score because you're both on the same team. You don't keep score when it's just you and your teammates. You keep score when it's your team against something else. So it's important to have that reminder at the beginning of these conversations of like, we're on the same team. How can we make this work? So my husband always jokes whenever they ask for advice for new couples, like a wedding shower or like on like the wedding welcome book or whatever, they ask for advice. My husband always says there's no such thing as compromises. Like I know that's like a really common advice of like, oh, compromise. It's like when you compromise, it's really like, somebody is not getting what they want and somebody is. He always jokes, there's no such thing as compromise. What does matter is that you're finding a balance of both people getting what they want. Like, it's not always going to be what you want and it's not always going to be what they want, but there's not usually like, in like the little decisions, a lot of times it means one person got what they wanted and one person didn't. So what matters there is to making sure that it is fair and balanced and equitable. Not that we're keeping score, but like that neither side feels like they're always giving up what they want for the other person and not receiving that gift in return. Because when you're in a loving partnership, sometimes you're carrying more of the weight than the other person is. Sometimes you're getting more of the benefit than the other person is. And that's part of the seasons of being in a long-term committed relationship. But it also needs to be two-sided so that both parties are giving and both parties are receiving. Because when both sides are working towards the same goal, you can get there. When you go in with that understanding and empathy and listening and knowing that together we can do this, we can figure it out, that's when the whole family is doing well as a whole. So I want to encourage you that no matter if you're trying to talk to your partner about something simple as socks, or something bigger like you want to come on our ADHD mom retreat that's in the fall. Like, no matter the decision, big or small, when you're able to separate that your past decisions about money don't have to impact the way you feel about decisions now, that you're allowed to have money spent on you even if you've made poor decisions in the past, that you are part of the family and you deserve for part of the resources to go towards you, because when the whole family is doing well, everyone is doing well. And knowing that you can have these conversations with your partner to figure out ways to spend your family's resources, that your opinion matters a lot. It can be really hard, especially when there is an imbalance of who's bringing in more money or if someone's staying home, that we feel like we don't deserve to be spent on because we haven't brought as much money in or we haven't brought any money in. And knowing that as a team, the family is all working towards one goal. We have one pot of money to take care of everyone and everyone matters. And while we all serve different roles, all those roles are important. They all matter. So you, mama, are worthy of having a weekend away. You are worthy of having new socks that don't fall down while you walk around during the day. You are worthy as a member of the team, a member of the family, to have some of the resources spent on you, and it is not selfish for you to expect that part of that money is spent on you as well, because you matter. Your well-being matters, and the better that you are taking care of yourself, the better that your family functions. So it's not selfish to take care of yourself. In fact, it's the opposite. Taking care of yourself means that you're doing the best job possible to take care of your family. I'll talk to you soon, Successful Mama. For more resources, classes, and community, head over to my website, motherhoodinadhd.com.